Ever wish you could kind of peek into the lives of your favorite characters, like years after their stories end? Well, today we're diving deep into The Bridgertons, Happily Ever After, by Julia Quinn.
It's a collection of second epilogues for each book, actually, plus a bonus novella about Violet Bridgerton.
So we get to see what happens after the Happily Ever After for all the Bridgerton siblings.
Exactly. Some answer questions that were left unanswered in the books. Others offer just these, heartwarming glimpses into their lives.
Years down the line, right?
Years down the line, yeah.
Okay, so let's jump into the first epilogue, focusing on Daphne and Simon.
Right.
They've been married for years, have a bunch of kids,
They do.
but then life throws them a curveball.
Yeah, Daphne finds out she's pregnant in her 40s.
Wow, totally unexpected.
Yeah, she thought that was impossible at this point.
I mean, talk about a surprise for the Duke and Duchess.
Big surprise.
And on top of that, Simon's got some unresolved issues from his past.
Right.
You know, his relationship with his dad was, well, complicated.
Very complicated. In this epilogue, he finally opens all these letters that he has from his father. They've been sitting there for years, unopened.
Oh, wow.
So it's this journey of confronting past hurts and trying to understand, where his father was coming from.
Okay, so Daphne and Simon are dealing with some real-life challenges. How about Anthony and Kate? They're always so competitive.
Always. And they still are. In their epilogue, there's this annual Pall match.
Oh, right. The Bridgertons take their Pall very seriously, don't they?
Oh, yeah. It's cutthroat. They're, battling for bragging rights.
So Anthony and Kate are right in the thick of it.
Oh, yeah.
I can just imagine the trash talk.
There's lots of trash talk.
So what about Benedict and Sophie? Does their epilogue focus on their own relationship?
Well, this one actually shifts focus a little bit.
Oh, okay.
It shines a light on Sophie's stepsister, Posey.
Oh, from their book, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And she has this, love at first sight thing.
Oh.
Yeah, and Benedict and Sophie become matchmakers.
That's sweet. So they're helping someone else find love.
Mm-hmm. They set up a chance meeting kind of reminiscent of how they first met.
Oh, I like that. It's a nice parallel. Now, Colin and Penelope's epilogue. This one has got to be juicy, right? I mean, their story ended with Penelope's big secret coming out.
Big secret.
That she's Lady Whistledown.
Yeah, and this epilogue focuses on Eloise's reaction to that.
Okay, so all the fallout.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The drama and the hurt feelings, all the questions of trust.
Because your best friend's been this, secret gossip columnist.
Exactly. It's a lot to process.
Yeah. I bet Eloise had a lot to say about that.
Oh, she did.
So what about Philip and Eloise?
Their epilogue is really interesting because it's told from their daughter Amanda's perspective.
Oh, cool. So we get to see Philip and Eloise's parents.
We do. And, through Amanda's eyes, sometimes loving, sometimes exasperated.
That's a fun way to show how their relationships evolved. Okay, how about Francesca and Michael?
Theirs takes a bit of a more serious turn.
Oh.
It deals with Francesca's struggles with infertility.
Oh, wow.
Quinn handles this really sensitively, giving a realistic portrayal of a couple dealing with that.
So it's an emotional exploration of that journey, right?
Right. It really is. It doesn't shy away from the emotional toll that it can take. It shows Francesca and Michael leaning on each other for support, finding strength in their love. It's a reminder that happily ever after isn't always an easy path.
Right. It's about facing those challenges together. Now, what about Hyacinth and Gareth? They were always so mischievous.
Oh, they still are.
Good.
Remember the hidden jewels at the end of their book?
Uh-huh.
This epilogue reveals when and how Hyacinth finally discovers them.
Okay.
It's very classic Hyacinth. Turns out she'd been searching for years without realizing they were right there.
I could totally picture her, just tearing the house apart, trying to find them.
Absolutely. Determined.
So after the emotional depth of Francesca and Michael's story, this one's a bit more lighthearted.
It is.
Okay. What about Gregory and Lucy? Are they still keeping things lively with their big family?
Oh, they are. Lucy is giving birth to their 9th child when some complications come up.
Oh, well, 9th child.
9th child, yes.
Okay.
Some readers actually felt this was a little out of place given the whole happily ever after theme.
Yeah, a bit of sudden drama there.
Yeah, but maybe Quinn was trying to show that even in the most loving marriages, life throws curveballs.
It makes you think about what happily ever after actually means.
Exactly.
So we've talked about all the siblings, but what about Violet Bridgerton?
Ah, yes. Violet in Bloom, the bonus novella.
It gives us a glimpse into her life, right?
It does, both before and after meeting Edmund.
So we get to see her as a young woman before she was the Viscountess Bridgerton.
We do. Full of life, a bit mischievous.
Like her kids.
Exactly. And then we see her strength and wisdom as a wife and then as a widow.
So it shows her evolution.
Yes.
And the novella doesn't shy away from the more difficult parts of her life either, right? Like losing Edmund.
It shows how deeply in love they were and how much his death impacted her. But it also shows her incredible strength in raising 8 children on her own.
That's incredible,
Yeah.
especially after experiencing such a loss. It's amazing how she was able to create such a, well, happy family.
Yeah. And you can see how much her children love and respect her.
Yeah. And I think Violet's influence goes beyond just her own story. You know, she's the glue that holds the whole Bridgerton family together.
Oh, absolutely. Her love and guidance shaped all of them.
It really shows the power of a mother's love.
It does. So Violet in Bloom is a really moving addition to the series.
Yeah, it gives us a good sense of closure. We've seen all the siblings find their happily ever afters, and now we see the woman who made it all possible.
Exactly. It ties everything together beautifully.
It reminds us that, you know, while romantic love is definitely a big theme in these stories, the love between a mother and her children is just as powerful.
Completely agree.
So we've explored all these different afters, but does this book actually answer the question of what happily ever after really means? That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts after hearing about all these different afters?
You know, I think the Bridgertons, happily ever after, really shows us that happily ever after isn't just this, like, end point.
Not a destination.
Yeah, it's more like a journey, one that keeps going.
So it's not about reaching some perfect state of bliss.
Nope. It's about riding the waves, dealing with whatever comes up together.
Like Francesca and Michael going through infertility, or Colin and Penelope trying to mend things after Lady Whistledown.
Exactly. Even years later, you know, after the honeymoon phase, there's still stuff to figure out.
Real life, real love.
Real life. But they face it together.
That seems to be a big theme here, doesn't it?
It really does. The power of love and commitment, family.
And it's what makes these stories so relatable, I think. Seeing how these couples grow and change.
Yeah, love isn't static. It evolves.
Speaking of evolving love, let's go back to Violet. Her novella, Violet in Bloom, gives us a whole new perspective on her.
It does. You see her before she was Viscountess Bridgerton, you know, as a young woman.
Less figuring things out.
Yeah, full of life, even a little mischievous.
Like her kids.
Exactly. But then you also see her become this wise, strong woman as a wife and then later as a widow.
So you see her whole journey.
The whole arc. And it doesn't sugarcoat things either.
You mean with Edmund's death?
Yeah. You see how much she loved him and how much his death hurt.
I can only imagine. Especially with 8 kids to raise.
It was a huge turning point for her, but it also shows how resilient she is. You know, she channeled all that grief into raising her family, creating a loving home for them.
That's incredible.
It is. And it speaks to her character, how she was able to create such a strong, happy family, you know, even after going through so much.
And her kids clearly adore her.
They do. They inherited her strength, her wit, her love.
And I think Violet's impact goes even beyond just her family. I mean, she's like the anchor of the whole Bridgerton world.
Oh, totally. She's the one who holds everything together. Her love, her guidance, shaped all her kids.
It really shows the power of a mother, doesn't it?
It does. So Violet in Bloom is a really beautiful addition to the Bridgertons world.
It's a good way to wrap up the whole collection, I think.
Yeah.
We've seen the siblings find happiness, and now we see the woman who is really behind it all.
Yeah, it brings everything full circle. And it reminds us that while romantic love is central to these stories, the bond between a mother and her children is just as powerful.
For sure. So after seeing all these different afters, do you think this book gives us a definitive answer to what happily ever after really is?
Well, that's the big question, right?
It is. What do you think? After exploring all these different afters.
I think the Bridgertons, happily ever after, shows us that happily ever after isn't this like perfect ending. It's not about reaching some final destination.
It's more about the journey, right?
Yeah, the journey that keeps going. Even after the wedding, the initial excitement fades.
So it's not about avoiding problems or challenges.
No, not at all. It's about facing those things head on, but together. Like Francesca and Michael with the infertility struggles, or Colin and Penelope with the whole Lady Whistledown fallout.
Those were some tough situations.
Yeah. And years down the line, these couples are still figuring things out.
That's real life, though, isn't it?
It is. But they're going through it together, and that's what makes the difference. That's what makes it work.
The power of love and commitment.
Exactly. And family. I think seeing these couples face these challenges, it makes them more relatable, right?
For sure. It reminds us that even these characters, who seem to have it all, they still deal with real-life problems.
Yeah, no one's exempt. But it's how they handle those problems that shows us what true love and commitment really mean.
And it gives us, as readers, I think, a sense of hope.
Uh-huh.
Because we see that even after the happily ever after, there's still a lot of life to be lived, with all its ups and downs.
Right. And it's those ups and downs that make it all worthwhile.
So maybe happily ever after isn't a destination, but rather how you travel the road.
That's a great way to put it. And maybe that's the takeaway here, to appreciate the everyday moments, good and bad, to cherish the people we love, and to remember that happily ever after isn't about perfection. It's about embracing the journey together.
That's a great note to end on. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the Bridgertons, happily ever after.
It was my pleasure.
And to our listeners, we hope this has inspired you to think about the afters in your own lives. And maybe even in the lives of some of your favorite fictional characters. What happens when the story ends? Where does their journey take them? Until next time.